Albracht, Tommy Castor. This is Sports Daily on Wichita's #1 sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
All right, welcome back, everybody, to another edition of Sports Daily. The Major League Baseball playoffs are upon us. We have Monday Night Football in the books. We've got all kinds of good stuff coming up for you today. Dan Israel, executive producer of the Chiefs Radio Network, joining us for his weekly visit. We'll chat with Dan. We'll also have Shreyas Laddha coming in for a visit with us, our KU insider, rescheduled from yesterday, so that will also be today in the second hour. Certainly a busy time at KU. We got to get the latest on Jalen Daniels' injury. We've got to get the latest on Arterio Morris with the basketball team. All kinds of stuff to get to with Shreyas, so we'll do that coming up in the second hour as well. Your calls, of course, to the IHOP hotline, which is brought to you by IHOP, where guests can enjoy the new pumpkin spice pancake combo. That number is 869-1240. On that number, we'll give away a couple pairs of tickets to the Dropkick Murphys, who are coming to town tomorrow night. We will get to some hockey giveaways, some HTO giveaways, all kinds of good stuff for you. Welcome in. I'm Jacob Albracht alongside Tommy Castor, Jad Chambers producing, and this is Sports Daily. Happy to be with you. Seahawks, Giants, Monday Night Football. Tommy, how much of that game did you tune in for? I tried. It was pretty brutal, though.
Yeah, I had it on in the background the majority of the game. Didn't really, I'll be honest, pay super close attention to it just because of how badly Daniel Jones was playing and how badly the Giants offense went. I mean, like, it was kind of a little bit of a slog to get through. But hats off to the Seahawks. I mean, clearly a better team than the Giants are. And you know, they absolutely dominated.
Yeah, I mean, they dominated, but they had 281 total yards offense, too. Like, offense was just a little challenged last night. It was not a pretty game. It was kind of hard on the eyes a little bit. So I was having I was having a hard time getting into it. I didn't feel, I wasn't really feeling anything on the betting side. I mean, I threw a little bit at it just in general, but nothing.
Don't want to talk about it. Don't want to talk about the betting side.
Oh yeah, you had a bad beat. Tommy had a Kenneth Walker over yards, and he lost a couple yards on the final carry to ruin that. It's pretty brutal, but you know that's the way it goes. We got back-to-back primetime games with situations like that between Mahomes' slide and that loss. It was we'll get back on the horse and get right back at it here. Major League Baseball, maybe that's an opportunity. As I've got my Rangers shirt on here, one of several. These are getting old. It's been 6 years since the Rangers have been in the playoffs. This is my off-center one that I was too nice to send back because my wife got it for me. It's all jacked up. But anything goes this time of year. 2 o'clock
How are you feeling
start.
this morning, by the way? Did you sleep at all last night in anticipation of the game?
I'm feeling okay. I'm feeling all right. Look, I don't – it's pretty remarkable when you consider how many games Corey Seager missed and the fact that, you know, they lost DeGrom early in the year. They trade for Scherzer. They lose him. Their bullpen is historically bad. Like, it's one of the worst bullpens ever in Major League Baseball. And they've had about 5 or 6 injuries to the starting rotation, and they're here, right? And, you know, they still have maybe the best offense in this postseason, and they still have 3 pretty good starters. So it's like, you know what? It's a puncher's chance. I'll take a puncher's chance there.
By the way, did I see correctly that Marcus Semien played in every single game this season? Like, all 162 of them, he played. Like, he didn't take a day off at all.
He's an MVP candidate, and so is Corey Seager. If Corey Seager would have played more games, Corey Seager would, probably, depending on what happens with Shohei, he would probably be the MVP. I mean, his year is just ridiculous for how many games he's missed. But those two at the top, I mean, it's as good a combo as there's been in baseball. And, it doesn't normally work out that way, right? Those were both free agents, big free agents that they brought in. But yeah, Marcus Semien has been everything that they paid for this team. Like, he's their Iron Man for sure. It's been really cool to see him go. But I don't know. Like the baseball postseason is hard anyway. The Brewers just learned they lost Woodruff. We talked about how much we might like them,
That's a
but
big
they
blow.
lost. Yeah, there's a big blow across the postseason. And, the Diamondbacks are the longest shot to win today. The Rangers are the second longest shot. But, it's that's the kind of stuff I look at in the postseason. Like, that's what's crazy. Like, can the Diamondbacks beat the Brewers today? Yes. That's what makes baseball fun. It's the thing that happens all year. You just get it in the postseason. You don't get it in other sports, right? Like a little bit in football, maybe, where you get like a big time, this team should go in, but they lose that individual game. Until last year in the NBA playoffs, you almost never get it in basketball. But in baseball, it's a total crapshoot, man. Like it is. Like it's the second season. What happened before today means nothing now in baseball.
Right.
That's what makes the baseball postseason so much fun.
I mean, basically, on any given day, any team can beat any other team. Like
Absolutely.
it's over the entire body of work in the season, and that's where you get the best teams in baseball. But if you're taking it down to a really, really small sample size, a best of 3 series, for example, in this wild card series, like any team can beat any team. I mean, like look at what was it last weekend when the Royals swept the Astros? Like any team can beat any team in a series. It's just a matter of whether or not they can sustain it, throughout an entire postseason.
Yeah, there's no question. And, I don't know what else to say other than I love Major League Baseball postseason play. It's fun too, like now, because you get it all day today, right? We get to turn it on. It starts at 2:00. Now I'm going to be a hot mess at work today. It might be a little bit of an emotional roller coaster. I'll be on set as that game is finishing. So that won't be fun, but we'll be we'll deal with it. We'll deal. Hopefully they get like a 12-0 lead in the third inning and then just put it in cruise control. That's what we need to happen. But that starts today. Again, I don't ask for much. I don't ask for much from you guys out there listening to the program every day. We try and make your day a little bit better. Don't ask for much. If you're out there, you're not a fan of any of these teams. Maybe you're a Royals fan. Maybe just throw a little of that. Maybe just throw a little of that interest in that, karma toward the Rangers for me. Because look, we've never won one, and I've got a couple of bets that would help send my kids to college if they hit.
Throw that little bit of karma their way, basically because they need all the karma that they can get. I mean, this is going to be difficult series for the Rangers taking on the Rays, who, I think, quite a few folks think that they're a championship caliber team. So this is not going to be an easy run for the Rangers at all when this series begins.
No, it's not, but that's okay because it all starts over and they're going to be fine. And this is why they traded for Jordan Montgomery. It's actually not why they traded for Jordan Montgomery to like be their ace in the postseason.
Yeah.
They're kind of hoping he'd be like their third guy,
Right.
But that's okay. He got thrust into this role and he's been incredible since they brought him over. So we'll see if they can get it done. And I'll just be a hot mess in the meantime. Okay, so that takes us through Monday Night Football. I really don't want to talk about much Monday Night Football. It was a really boring game.
Can we talk about how bad Daniel Jones was? Can we talk about how like he's making $160 million and just absolutely brutal. And then there was that little exchange on the sideline between he and Brian Dable, like clearly not on the same page. Like there are some major issues going on with the Giants, especially considering that they don't have Saquon Barkley right now. It makes that offense incredibly one-dimensional. They've got some big time problems.
Yes, they do. I don't know about the contract because teams get held hostage. When you get what are they supposed to do? Just let him go? It's kind of like, when you talk about the Cowboys and Dak Prescott, when you talk about the Vikings and Kirk Cousins. Now, I think both of those guys are better than Daniel Jones. It's kind of like the Cardinals with Kyler Murray. Like what are you supposed to do when you've got quarterbacks that are certainly like better than bad, right? Like they're capable, they're serviceable, but they're not Mahomes or Herbert or, Burrow or Allen. Like, what are you supposed to do? You start over? Like and that's what makes it so difficult. And, Daniel Jones is as on the line as anybody. I know he's wowed people. I love his toughness. I love his ability to run. Like he's a grinder. He gets out there. He gets back up every time. I like all those things about him. It just hasn't worked. But the Giants sort of blame here too. Who's their top receiver? Paris Campbell?
Yeah.
I mean, like, what are
Slayton,
we
like, come on.
What are we doing here? Like, if you're gonna
Yeah.
you bring in Darren Waller, the aging, always injured tight end, and expect him to like command 100 targets this year. I like Darren
Yeah.
Waller too, but that's not where like they deserve some blame too. Saquon
Well,
Barkley
and
goes out, and all of a sudden you look at that offense, you're like,
yeah,
what who's out there?
their offensive line is Swiss cheese. I mean, Daniel Jones was on his
They've
back a
got
ton
some
in that game.
injuries. They've got injuries
It's
on the
not,
line.
yeah, it's not good. And honestly, like that was probably at least through the first quarter of the season, my worst pick. Remember we went and picked all of our playoff teams and all of that. I thought the Giants would go back to the playoffs because I'm that much of a believer in Brian Dable. But when you don't have the horses to be able to, make it back, that makes it a lot more difficult. And, I would argue, and this actually brings up a really good point that you mentioned a couple minutes ago. I would argue that it's more difficult for an NFL team to deal with a quarterback that is right on that line, as like an average or adequate quarterback, as opposed to having a really, really bad quarterback, right? Like if you have a really, really bad quarterback, at least you know that he's bad. At least you know that you've got to try to do something different, like draft somebody, sign a free agent, whatever it is. Like, that player is not going to be your franchise quarterback long term. It's a little bit different when you've got a quarterback that's right on the line where you can say, he's okay, but is he going to take you to a Super Bowl? That's been honestly, like that's been the discussion around a guy like Kirk Cousins his entire career, right? Like he's an okay quarterback. He's a good quarterback. The ceiling is not super high, but the floor is not super low. And I would argue that's a more difficult position for a team to be in than having like a really, really bad quarterback.
I've said that for years because it came up with Dak Prescott and the Cowboys. It's like, what are you going to do? Like, what are you supposed to do? Because, and it's unfair to those guys because everyone's like, oh, well, they're not Mahomes or, they're not. And it's like, well,
Right.
yeah, they're not. That's why those three or
Right.
four teams have such an advantage over the rest of the league. I think that, you can get it done with those San Francisco has shown us that, right? Like they've gotten it done now with a bunch of different guys. So it can be done, but San Francisco also has an incredible roster around them. Dallas thinks they can get it done. Dallas has a really good roster, right, around Dak Prescott to try and make it work. It's thin, but it's good. The Giants have not done enough, and I didn't like them at all coming into this year. I didn't buy them last year. And look, they proved me wrong about 1,000 times, but I just watched them. I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't get it with this team. They're too thin. They haven't done a good job at all.
I thought they'd be right back there. Like I mean, really, the team isn't that different from a year ago.
I know,
to
I
today,
get it, and
right?
It was just sort of me like doubling down, right? Like I just still don't buy this group. And Dable got, he was pushing all the right buttons and doing all this stuff. I don't know if Daniel Jones is the ultimate problem. I think that it's bigger than that. I don't think they have nearly enough on that side of the ball to help him succeed because he's not the kind of guy like Patrick Mahomes who can walk onto the field with 9 different receivers that we've never heard of to some degree and make it work. Like they're not the same player. So we'll see. I don't know what the ultimate future of Daniel Jones is. I mean, the Giants are sort of stuck with him, so they just got to roll with it, but they got to do a better job of getting players around him. And they've tried. Look, Kadarius Toney didn't work out. Wan'Dale Robinson kind of showing flashes. Like they're trying to invest it and get it right. They're just not getting it right.
But even at the running back position, I mean, outside of Saquon Barkley, he goes down with his
somebody else
43rd injury. Who else do you? I mean, Matt Breida. Like he's not going to do anything for you. Like they don't have anybody outside of Saquon Barkley to run the football. And it would be different if Barkley didn't have an injury history. He does, and he has over the course of his career. So, it's not only the wide receiver position where they're thin. Like they don't have any kind of insurance policy behind Saquon Barkley.
No, that Barkley is very interesting, and like you can make the case of why running backs don't get paid and should get paid, right? Like look at how important he is to that offense, but at the same time he gets hurt all the time.
Yep.
Chicken and egg, which is it? Which are you going to do? So I don't know. The Giants are a mess. They're not a real contender. They never were. Seattle, though, Seattle looks pretty good and good for Geno Smith. I thought, like Troy Aikman, I thought he spent a little too much time on that play on the sideline there. I understand why he thought it was dirty. Isaiah Simmons took his arms off to to try to not do what happened. Like he was trying. So I think it was dirty. But other than that, Seattle did, I think, exactly what it wanted to in the game. Holy smokes, that, young corner looks incredible. He was all over the place, Devin Witherspoon. So Seattle, Pete Carroll deserves to be, and he will be a Hall of Famer, I think. But whenever we talk about the great coaches in this league, it usually centers around like the older guys, Belichick, right? Tomlin, Andy Reid. What Pete Carroll's doing right now in Seattle is unreal. They trade away Russell Wilson, right? Everybody, including me, I thought they were going to be the worst team in football easily last year. They give a reclamation project like Geno Smith, and they're getting it done. And now, like, you're watching them and you're like, man, they got a lot of good young players. Like, there was no rebuild. That's incredible.
Right. The contrast between the Seahawks and the Giants, I mean, I think it's very obvious. We just talked about how the Giants don't have really any skill position players that you feel confident about. And even though, nobody's going to say Geno Smith is the best quarterback in the NFL, but he's got weapons. I mean, you've got DK Metcalf, who is arguably maybe a top, I don't know if I would put him top 5 as far as receivers in the NFL, but definitely top 10. Tyler Lockett has been around forever and is really talented. And then they go out and they draft JSN. They've got Jake Bobo, who has been a really nice breath of fresh air catching the football. Zach Charbonnet, they drafted him. Kenneth Walker running the football. Like, they've got some exciting skill players. And so it's kind of like what we just talked about. You've got a quarterback in Geno Smith who's not the best, but he's got a ton of great weapons around him. And then, oh, by the way, that Seattle defense, which historically has always been really good, continues to be really good. And so the supporting players around Geno Smith, that really helps out, significantly. I was a little bit bummed that Jamal Adams, after that long-awaited return, him coming back out onto the field for the very first game, he only played for 4 plays, had a concussion, then left the game. That was a bummer because I wanted to see him back out there. But really, other than that, like, it was a really solid night for the Seahawks, and I think solidifies them as a legitimate team to keep your eyes on in the NFC.
So think about with Seattle, and we're going to take a break. We're going to come back and talk about the Chiefs because they're getting rumored now to, like, do they need to go trade for a veteran wide receiver? So we'll come up with some names. But think about this with Pete Carroll and the Seahawks right now. They're basically on the same timeline doing the same thing that the Patriots were supposed to be doing. In fact, they're even further behind when the Patriots had a chance to do it. And the Patriots took a first-round quarterback. Which one of those two teams do you feel better about right now? And we're talking about the guy that some people crown as the GOAT of coaching. Pete Carroll's out coaching him, and he's out roster building him, and he's just out doing all of it. Now, again, he doesn't have 18 Super Bowls or whatever either, but that just, like, to just draw that direct comparison, what they're doing essentially without a quarterback. I mean, nobody thought Geno Smith was going to be this guy. It's incredible. It's incredible. Credit to the Seahawks and to Pete Carroll. And, man, if I had to pick a coach to play for, he'd be at the top of that list. He looks like he's a lot of fun to be around. 869-1240 on that IHOP hotline. Let's do a giveaway here. We'll do one of our pairs of Dropkick Murphys. I surprised Jad with this, so he didn't have the Dropkick Murphy music. But the Dropkick Murphys are coming to town tomorrow at the Wave Outdoor Stage. Show starts at 7 o'clock with Jesse Ahern and the Interrupters. Celtic Rock with the Dropkick Murphys tomorrow night in Old Town at the Wave. Let's go first caller, 869-1240 on the IHOP hotline. Get a pair of those tickets. Good luck, everybody. We'll be right back.
Your phone call is welcome. 869-1240. Sports Daily on 97.5 and 1240. KFH, Wichita's #1 sports talk.
All right, welcome back in, everybody. Sports Daily on KFH. Glad to be here with you today on this Tuesday edition. We've got Dan Israel, executive producer of the Chiefs Radio Network, coming up in just a little bit, as well as Shreyas Laddha, our KU insider, to talk about everything going on in Lawrence right now. Chris takes our first pair of Dropkick Murphy tickets. Congratulations, Chris. We'll give away another pair of those before the end of the show. We'll give away some hockey and tea as well. All right, Tommy, a lot of people asking questions about the Chiefs and should they go trade for a wide receiver. Interesting topic. Let's go through some of the names that you've heard and whether we like those or not, and then we can come up with some names that could potentially be available for Kansas City. What have you got?
So I've heard that Chase Claypool is kind of the number one name. Clearly, there's some disgruntledness going on with him and the Bears. He was a healthy scratch last week, didn't play. And then it sounds like the team told him to stay home this week as they prepare for Thursday Night Football against the Commanders. I don't know. I mean, we know how much Brett Veach and Andy Reid love reclamation projects. Look at Kadarius Toney as an example. So that name has been floated around a little bit. The other name I've heard, we can talk about both of these names. The other name I've heard potentially available is Hollywood Brown from the Cardinals. Of course, he was with the Ravens for a few years and then, now in Arizona. The Cardinals have, put up quite a bit of fight, but, Brown is not really getting the looks that, I think that his talent would suggest that he could. So that could be an interesting name as well. I'm sure there are others out there, but those are the two names I've heard.
Hollywood Brown, I like the idea of quite a bit, but I don't know if Arizona's going to go that way. I mean, they're playing hard right now. They do have a young stud wide receiver, it looks like, in Michael Wilson. So maybe they think they can do it, and maybe they can, like, the front office can tank, but the team on the field doesn't. They've already showed us they're willing to do that. So, yeah, I'd love the idea of Hollywood Brown. Now, he's making, correct me if I'm wrong, Hollywood Brown's making some money, I think. So, that makes that a little bit challenging. Chase Claypool, I would have absolutely no interest in. Disgruntled, like, he's not that good. No. Like, who does Chase Claypool upgrade? Like, who's he better than that's currently a Chief? That's my problem with Chase Claypool. Hollywood Brown's probably better than everybody, right? Chase Claypool's not better than anybody. I wouldn't even, like, why? Why would you take on
Chase Claypool, he had a really, I don't want to say really good, he had a decent rookie campaign back in 2020 with the Steelers, and then his usage declined in 2021. It declined again in 2022. I don't know. I don't see that being a massive upgrade other than just there's a little bit more experience on the field. That's really it. Like, I don't know if the talent is an upgrade at all, and it's probably not, and it probably doesn't help the locker room at all. The only thing that Claypool brings to the table, and Hollywood Brown would bring this too, is a little bit of an upgrade as far as their experience and what they've been able to do in the National Football League compared to these really young receivers that Kansas City has.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like, I don't think Claypool's better than anybody. I don't think he's very good, and he seems like he's a headache, and I don't want either one of those things if I'm the Chiefs. The problem for Hollywood Brown, and I assume that I think it's a problem, is he's making $13 million this year. I don't know if the Chiefs have the room to do that. Maybe they do now with the Mahomes restructure and Jones. I don't know, but that's a lot of money. I'm going to give you a name that, and I don't know let me look up what he's making too. I think that this guy is a great fit. I always have kind of wanted to see him in Kansas City. And I think they can make this dollar figure work. I think it would make sense for both teams to some degree. How about Allen Robinson? Allen Robinson's not making much. His base salary is like $1.1 million, and they have a potential out before he would be set to make $10 million next year. But Allen Robinson's been a baller for a long time, has never had the opportunity to play with a good quarterback. We went to LA to do that last year, and then Matt Stafford gets hurt. So Allen Robinson would be a guy because, Pickett might be hurt for a while. The Steelers have tons of wide receivers. I mean, I'd be willing to kick like a 4th-round pick for Allen Robinson for the rest of this year. I like that player. That's the name that has popped into my head, and it has as much to do with the fact that I've always kind of wanted to see him go to Kansas City because I like him as a player. But, I mean, that makes sense to me. And, if you're Pittsburgh, it's not like you're bailing on the season or anything. Calvin Austin's look good. They have other good young receivers. I would make that call if I were the Chiefs just to see.
Let me give you another name, and this might be money prohibitive, might not work, kind of in the same way with Hollywood Brown. But DJ Moore is playing for the Bears, right? We talked about Claypool and how he's not doing anything for the Bears. But, the Bears brought in DJ Moore from Carolina. He's making like $17 million a year, so it could be cost prohibitive and may not work with the salary cap for Kansas City. But, I remember a year ago when the Panthers were unloading everybody. You and I had conversations about DJ Moore potentially being a good fit for Kansas City, right? And, of course, he played in the game against Kansas City a week ago, really was the only bright spot offensively that the Bears had. I don't know if the Bears, look, like, they're more than likely going to get the first pick in the NFL draft, barring some kind of crazy, like, improvement as the time goes on. And I don't know if Caleb Williams will end up a Chicago Bear or not. But, man, you could clear some cap space if you are the Bears. You could get rid of DJ Moore. move on from him, that could be a good fit. I think, again, money wise, it may not work, but I'm thinking of like DJ Moore as a potential, maybe like really shooting for the moon here. Like Mike Evans is a name that is somebody that could be a great fit for Kansas
they're
City.
3-1 though. They're not.
But no, again,
like
but no, right. Again, knowing that the Bucks are, I think, exceeding expectations, they're not going to get rid of him. So if you're not going to move a Mike Evans, like look at a DJ Moore.
If I'm the Bucks, I'm right now. I think I'm winning the division. There's no chance on that one. I don't think.
Right.
But DJ Moore is
That's
interesting.
A pipe dream. That's a pipe dream.
Right. DJ Moore is. I don't know. The Bears are in a weird spot. Are they going to bail on Fields, who looked much better last week? Are they going to, and the other problem is like Eberflus is coaching for his job. So he's not going to want to do anything like that. Like there's no security for him. I know that they haven't won a game yet. We're only 4 in. I mean, the Bears were like a darling team to be good this year.
Right.
Are they really ready 1 month into this season to be like, we've got to start all over again? I don't think they're probably as eager to do that as the general public. I think they're more likely to continue to try to see and just like understand if Fields is the guy. They could have had the first pick last year. They obviously believe in Fields. So we'll just have to see that play out. It didn't make any sense. None of us understood why they hired that guy there with a young quarterback. Didn't make sense. Eberflus is the hire to begin with. So I don't think they're going to be ready to do that. DJ Moore's been good for them this year, and he has a clear rapport with Justin Fields. Like I say this as I literally earlier this morning traded DJ Moore in fantasy football, and I love DJ Moore. Love him. Like he's one of my favorite players. Another guy like Allen Robinson, who's sort of been handicapped by his quarterback play over the years. He is so dang good. I would make that trade right this second if I thought I could do it, because he's a guy you would think about, extending and having for a long time if you were Kansas City. And you could probably find a way to make that money work. I just don't know if the Bears are there yet. And when is the NFL trade deadline? Like we got some time here.
Well, yeah, there's a few weeks until then. I want to say like it's the first
week
weekend
7
in
usually.
November, maybe
after week 8, October 31st.
Yep.
So there's, if we're talking about 0-8 for the Bears, maybe that's a different scenario. I don't know what let me see what the Bears schedule is. It's too early for me to think any team is ready to tank like that. I think Hollywood Brown is a little bit different because they have some other weapons there.
It was really easy
Arizona.
A year ago to look at the Panthers and you could tell like exactly what they were doing. They moved Matt Rule out of town. They ship off Christian McCaffrey. They start moving pieces. And you could tell that pretty early on. Like Matt Rule was the first head coach to lose his job a season ago. So you knew they were going to start moving pieces and having that fire sale. I don't know if there's another team right now that is really in that same position as the Panthers are outside of the Bears. I mean, really it would be the Bears, I think, would be that team. Another scenario to bring up is that the Chiefs do absolutely nothing. And I think that's probably the most likely scenario.
Me too.
Like we can throw a bunch of names out there. I think that honestly, despite the issues that we've discussed and that everybody has seen with the wide receiver room in Kansas City, honestly, I think that the Chiefs are okay with it. I think they feel like the wide receiver room is adequate. I think that they feel like they can win a Super Bowl without making an upgrade at wide receiver. I'm not sure that I necessarily feel that way. I don't feel extremely good about where the wide receivers are, but I just have this feeling that they're not going to get aggressive with that. They're not going to go out and try to move pieces to bring in a wide receiver, that can be an upgrade. I really don't see that, honestly. And I know you hate it. I don't love it either. If they do make a move at all, it's probably going to be like a Chase Claypool. That's probably if they do anything. Like I can't imagine, as great as it would be to have a Hollywood Brown or a DJ Moore or an Allen Robinson or somebody like that. If they make a move, because we know how much they like reclamation projects, it's probably going to be Chase Claypool or nobody.
Yeah, let me be clear. This has been an exercise of like what ifs. I don't think they're going to do anything either. Something would have to fall into their lap. It's also too early for the Chiefs to do that, Tommy. Like they, sort of like too early for the Bears to be ready to make a move on DJ Moore. Like it's too early for the Chiefs to bail on, Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney and Rashee Rice and all these players. Like I think don't you feel like those guys have at least gotten better? I mean, I do. Better than
No.
week one? Better than week one? I think there's more.
I mean, Scott, I mentioned it yesterday. Sky Moore, MVS, and Justin Watson had 2 catches for 11 yards combined on Sunday night. So,
right.
and I think I think a big
they're
issue.
spreading the ball around
issue.
by design.
My issue is that the guys that we've wanted to see a major step forward from, Sky Moore particularly, just disappears for stretches at a time.
Yeah,
like just
I
goes
can't figure
away.
it out either.
And I don't know if that is a level of trust that's missing with Mahomes. I don't know if that is play calling and by design. It could be a combination of all of that. One other thing that we noticed from Sunday night, and I don't know if this is going to be a trend or if it was a one-off, but the Chiefs were a lot more balanced between run and pass than what we're typically used to seeing from them. Like they ran the ball a lot more. They didn't throw it quite as much. Is that going to be a trend? And if so, then do we really need to put a lot of expectations on guys like Rashee Rice and Sky Moore and others? I don't know.
So I don't watch the all 22s. Let me make that clear. So what I'll say next, I think, is just me watching games like from afar, and it's hard to like get a real good feel for this. And we'd have to, and we can ask Dan Israel this in just a little bit because he does watch that stuff. It doesn't seem to me like, and hasn't, when we talk about Sky Moore, for instance, and I don't know if this is him or play calling or what, or if this is by design, like it almost feels to me like, and it has from week one, like they're not getting to him in Mahomes' reads, like Mahomes not getting that far into the progression to get to him. Now, if you had a big time receiver in, they're going to come earlier in that progression. They're going to command the ball. The Chiefs don't necessarily have anybody commanding the ball right now, but I do think that things are looking different than they normally do. Mahomes is not, getting through that. And, a lot of the plays that get made with Mahomes happen right at second reaction. And that's where experience has to come into play. And that's where you need more time because they are second reaction plays. So just like within the design of plays,
it's getting open as Mahomes is improvising and trying to find ways to find that seam.
You're not going to bring in Hollywood Brown. He's not all of a sudden going to be able to do that with Mahomes. So it's like what's happening within the design of the play. Right now, the only guy that can do that is Kelsey. Everybody else is doing what they're designed to do. So I don't, and I told you from the beginning, I didn't think this wide receiver room was good enough, but I don't think it's time yet to go do something else because I don't think if they go and do something else, it's got to be able to be a longer term thing, right? Like you've got to at least be, and Allen Robinson would be a little different because he's an older veteran, right? But like if you're going to invest in one of these younger guys, that's got to be a long-term move because it does take time. It's a good topic to bring up with Dan, and we'll do that.
Are they good enough? Is that wide receiver room good enough right now for the Chiefs to win a championship without them upgrading at the trade deadline? That's the major question.
Yeah.
Like, are they good enough to win a championship?
Sure. Yeah, I think that they are. I think they'll look very different by the time that comes into play. But yes, I would say with Kelsey, this group, and the ability to run the ball a little bit and the defense stepping up, 100% yes, that's good enough to win a championship. Can it be better? Oh, yeah, it can be. Does that come from within or does that come from outside? We can ask Dan that. It's an interesting question. 869-1240 is the number on the IHOP hotline. Tommy, what's coming up for the Wichita Thunder?
Yeah, home opener in about 2.5 weeks from now. October 20th in Trust Bank Arena, the Thunder take on the Kansas City Mavericks. We're really looking forward to hockey being back in Wichita, the season beginning, and we've got a pair of tickets for you for the home opener.
Here we go. Home opener. It is right here. The hockey season starts very, very soon. We'll throw in 2 free iced tea cards to HTO. I got to tell you, people are going nuts for this apple pie. There's apple pie now and peach cobbler. It's the fall. Feels like it at HTO. You can get those at Wichita East, Wichita West, or now brand new in Derby. We'll give away those 2 free cards. Wichita Thunder home opener tickets. Let's do the first caller during the break on the IHOP hotline. 869-1240. Jad will get us a winner. And we'll be back with more Sports Daily right after this.
.97.5 and 1240 KFH.
Tune in to the Retire Hour Show Saturday at 7 a.m. on KFH or online at kfhradio.com.
Start the NFL week off right with FanDuel Sportsbook, the official partner of KFH. All customers get a no-sweat same-game parlay for Thursday Night Football. Just place a 3-leg same-game parlay on this week's game between the Commanders and the Bears, and you'll get bonus bets back if you don't win. NFL same-game parlay is the perfect way to combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payday. Build your own, or choose one of the popular SGPs pre-built for you in FanDuel's top-rated sportsbook app. The promo code is my name, Ted. Visit FanDuel.com/Ted. Don't miss out on your chance to get a no-sweat same-game parlay on America's #1 sportsbook. FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. 21 plus in present in Kansas City. Conditions as non-withdrawable bonus bets expire 7 days after receipt. Tax refund $5 unless otherwise specified. Subject apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. FanDuel is offering online sports wagering in Kansas under an agreement with Kansas Star Casino LLC. Gambling problem? Getting help is your best bet. Call 1-800-522-4700 or visit ksgamblinghelp.com.
Don't let a great night out in Wichita turn into a lifetime of regret from a DUI. I'm attorney John Rapp. If you've been arrested for a DUI, please call me at 316-267-2000 or go to DUIWichita.com.
If you crave an extra special great tasting margarita, stop by Spangles for our extra special mango margarita. Bold tequila with the sweet and wild flavor of mango brings you a great tasting margarita with the perfect combination for a fruity and tropical drink. Hurry in to try the new Spangles Mango Margarita, only here for a limited time. Spangles, where cocktails just taste better. Spangles reminds you, please drink responsibly.
Spangles just taste better. It's that time of year. Fall. Leaves changing colors, sweaters, and the Spangles Caramel Pumpkin Pie Slide.
We start with a whole slice of real pumpkin pie. Layer it with our creamy vanilla soft serve and top it off with Ghirardelli sea salt caramel.
So come in and try the Caramel Pumpkin Pie Slide and make it your new out-of-the-ordinary pumpkin treat. Just like fall, it's only here for a limited time.
Spangles Caramel Pumpkin Pie Slide. It just tastes better.
Your water heater keep you like your faucet from leaking. Just call out the pros and David Lee's.
If you have a tankless water heater, it is necessary to maintain these units yearly. Over time, the heat exchangers become lined with lime and calcium buildup. The fans on the units can get filled with debris. The burners need cleaned and blown out. David Lee's Plumbing can maintain and help extend the lifetime of your unit.
What are you doing? I'm in training. It's football season. Sad. Okay, first off, your form is all wrong. Second, you don't need to practice opening and closing your grill to get ready for football. Grilling calls for Gates.
Dude, you're talking to a pro here. I'd never forget my Gates barbecue sauce and seasonings.
Pick up a few bottles of Gates & Sons barbecue sauce and seasonings at your local supermarket or club. If you don't see it, ask for it.
Save 11% on your next exterior project at Menards. Keep your home looking clean and beautiful with Dutch Boy paints. DuraClean paint provides a weather-resistant coating with crack and fade resistance. Get a gallon starting at $32.89 after rebate. Get 11% off everything now at Menards. Good through October 8th. Savings are mail-in rebate. Some exclusions apply. See store for details.
It's easy to think all money managers are pretty much the same, but at Fisher Investments, we're clearly different.
Different now. Sell high-commission investment products, right?
No, Fisher Investments doesn't sell any commission-based investment products.
Well, you must earn commissions on trades.
Nope, never at Fisher. We're a fiduciary, obligated to act in our client's best interest. It's the highest standard of care for a financial advisor.
How do you know what's in their best interest?
We get to know our clients and then tailor a portfolio based on their goals and needs.
But you probably sneak in some hidden layer fees.
No, we have one transparent management fee structured so we do better when our clients do better.
Wow, you really look out for your clients.
That's because our top priority is helping them achieve a comfortable retirement. It might be why most of our clients come from other money managers. Visit FisherInvestments.com to find out why investors like you switch to us. Fisher Investments, clearly different money management.
Investments and securities
activities involve the risk of loss.
Call in and give us your thoughts.
It's absolutely crazy.
316-869-1240. This is your home for sports. 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
Oh, okay, take it easy. We're going on the air.
This is Sports Daily on KFH.
Congratulations to Jessica for winning our HTO and Wichita Thunder hockey tickets. Hello to all the ladies out there. We appreciate you guys tuning in here to Sports Daily as well. As the fellas, sometimes we got two cavemen in here running the show, so thanks for hanging with us, Jessica. All right, you can catch our stream, by the way, on our video stream, I should say, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Ladies out there, we are married men.
That's just going to scare all the ladies away. If
you're tuning in to sneak a peek here, we're married. Okay, like let's take it easy here.
Pump the brakes a little bit.
Yeah, come on now. All right, so we appreciate you tuning in. We're joking, of course. 869-1240 is that IHOP hotline for you. Glad to be here with you. We've got a busy second hour coming. We've got Shreya Slaughter joining us right at the top of the hour to talk about everything going on in Lawrence, and there's a lot, by the way. We'll get the latest on Jalen Daniels. We'll get the latest on Arterio Morris and that situation. Bill Self talked yesterday. Lance Leipold talked yesterday. So we'll get all of that, and then we've got Dan Israel coming for the Kansas City Chiefs, the executive producer of the Chiefs Radio Network. Want to talk to Dan about that wide receiver question we were just kind of pondering in the last segment, as well as what he thought of Zach Wilson, and can that be the guy and the Chiefs survive a game that gets a little tricky? We've got the Major League Baseball playoffs beginning today, by the way, and you've got the Rangers, Rays, Blue Jays, Twins, Diamondbacks, Brewers, Marlins, Phillies. Those are the four matchups. And the format now isn't one game, remember. You've got 3-game series. They start today. They're each day, today, Wednesday, Thursday, and they'll move on to play the other 4 teams. Tommy, I think we got into this a little bit yesterday. I love this format. I do. I love that you don't have a home and a road. I love that you earn the right to host all 3 games. It's better for everybody that this is 3 games and not 1. It's just that's the way baseball's got to be. And I don't – the big question is it too much of a break for the 4 teams that aren't playing to have – they will have last played Sunday, and the first time they'll play, right, is it Friday? When do they begin those series?
Saturday is game 1. Yeah. So you've got games 1, 2, and then 3 if necessary in the wild card series, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, an off day on Friday, and then game 1 of the divisional series starts on Saturday.
So here's why I don't love that part of it, and that's the only part that I catch on, is because teams, in theory, Tommy, that are playing in these series, I'll take the Rangers, for instance. Jordan Montgomery is going to be their clear top guy in the postseason. Well, they'll pitch him today. They can't pitch him again in this series, right? But if they win it, they would be able to line him up just like the other teams to pitch the first game of that next series. Like, these teams don't lose their rotational order by waiting until Saturday to play. If you played that game Friday and you make Texas get on a plane, get to, who do they play next? They would have to get to Baltimore, right? And then play right away on Friday. They couldn't set the rotation. That to me, you earn that as the home team in the next round. Right now, if you're the Orioles, the Rangers can reset their rotation for that series. So, what's the inherent advantage other than obviously not having to play in this series? But big picture to the postseason, it's not that much of an advantage for these teams that don't have to play the wild card round.
Yeah, I feel like, of course, I follow the Braves, right? And the break that they're going to have this week, I think is good for them because of the injuries that they've dealt with in the rotation. Will they be able to get Max Fried back? He was on the IL to end the season. Can they get him back in time for the divisional series? And if they had to play this week, I don't know if they would be able to. So the fact that they wouldn't potentially have to pitch him until Sunday or Monday, I think that bodes well for their chances of getting him back. So for that reason, I think that it's good, at least for my team. But I get it, for these other teams that are waiting for an entire week, how What does that mean for them? How are they going to be able to stay fresh and loose and all of that? But you know what? That's a question that is posed all the time. Like think about the NFL. You've got teams that they get a bye week, and the big debate is always like in the playoffs, for them to play right away, or is it better for them to get the bye and get a week off and get healthier? There are two sides to it, obviously, but I like the idea that these teams get a chance to catch their breath, to rest a little bit, to game plan, to strategize, and they're not thrown right back into a series right away. I think the advantage still is with those teams that they get a week off, they get to get healthier, and they get to rest and get ready for the divisional series.
And maybe teams also didn't set their rotation, right? Like maybe you didn't have the chance to set it at the end of the year anyway. Like it doesn't line up all the time.
Now you can kind of get it back to where you want it to be.
It is
clear number
though,
1, 2,
well,
3.
and I mean for the teams that are playing, but everybody seems like they have their top guy going in these series today. So I mean, they're all going to get that.
They should.
Well,
I mean,
but
game
like,
1 is critical, right?
It is critical, but so might have been the last game of the season, and you might have needed to use those guys then. And so none of these teams in today, I don't think, are going to get punished that way. Like they're all going to be able to reset their rotations for the next series. I'd be a little concerned about that if I were the teams that, had it. You got to stay hot. Like, how do you stay in a groove? Like, do you call up a minor leaguer to throw actual pitching? I don't know what you do. But we'll see. I love it. Here we go. Today, 2:00. Let's go, Rangers. Don't do this to me. Don't do this to me. 869-1240. We'll come back. Shreyas Laddha joins us to start hour number 2. Our KU Insider. Lot to get to with Shreyas. We'll have it next on Sports Daily.
54 hits. George Brett with a base hit in his final at-bat in the major leagues, and that was 30 years ago on this day. I'm Ted, the Sports Head!
Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor. This is Sports Daily on Wichita's #1 sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
It's that time, Sports Daily, getting all the inside information on the Kansas Jayhawks. Let's go now to the KU football and basketball beat writer from the Kansas City Star, Shreyas Laddha.
All right, Shreyas Laddha joining us here as we kick off hour number 2. A normal Monday visit moved to Tuesday because it was, well, quite frankly, a very busy day in Lawrence yesterday. We had both Lance Leipold with his weekly availability and Bill Self with some availability. 2 massive storylines to follow here with Jalen Daniels' injury, with the Arterio Morris situation. Shreyas, our KU insider, is a hoops and football reporter for the KC Star. Shreyas, welcome in. I know it's been a little bit busy for you here lately. How are you?
Good. Exhausted, but good.
Yeah, we've been there, man. We understand it. Let's start with football. So surprising everybody, no Jalen Daniels against Texas, which is just really unfortunate, but it is the situation. But I mean, in reality, the question is now, how long does this last? Is this a one-off? Is this something? When we talked about it last week, I haven't thought that Jalen Daniels has looked healthy all year. Clearly, he's not. Is he going to get healthy? Is that even possible? And how long, if he's not, how long does this consistent back injury keep him out?
Honestly, it's so hard to say because, it seems like the back thing is one of those things where it can be good one day, bad the other day. And it's unfortunate because Jalen is such a talented quarterback and talented player. He elevates his Kansas program. I'm not saying they would have beat Texas in that game, but I think it would have been a heck of a lot closer than it was. And the time of possession that Texas had the ball wouldn't be double. The plays called would not be double almost of what Kansas had. So it's unfortunate because I think Kansas really needs Jalen Daniels to have the dream season they're hoping to have. And I don't know what the timeline is because, yesterday Lance said he was day-to-day and, the trainers are looking at him. He didn't practice at all. So it seems like maybe he might miss this week as well, and maybe he comes back next week. I mean, it's just so tough to say because, unfortunately, it seems like this back injury has just kind of been lingering on and off during the season. And, him getting it in a hotel walkthrough is just unfortunate because, Bean find out 30, 45 minutes before play time. And, that's just a tough situation to be in against one of the best teams in the country.
So watching the way, Shreyas, that this team responded, of course, hostile environment, big time national window on ABC, taking on the 3rd-ranked team in America, the Texas Longhorns. They hung with Texas for a while in that game. And then, of course, the defense just looked gassed and the Longhorns ran away with it. What were your big takeaways from the way the Jayhawks, without Jalen Daniels, responded, Jason Bean specifically, but just in general, the program not having their star quarterback ready to go in that big moment?
I mean, I was pretty impressed by the defense for most of the game until really the second half. I mean, they're put in a really tough position where, to be quite frank, Jason Bean couldn't move the ball downfield. And, the run game was doing all it could. I mean, they averaged, 5.3 or 5.5 yards per carry. And Jason just was struggling to kind of, get first down, struggling to move the ball downfield. He had 23 yards at half, 2 of 7, on the throws he made. It just puts a lot of pressure on the KU defense to consistently be out there in the field, especially against, I would say, a Texas team that has more talented than probably anywhere in the Big 12, and probably is more talented than most of the teams in the country. Just their offensive skill players are so quick and shifty, and they're so athletic, and their ability to make players miss tackles was prevalent throughout the Kansas game, where they missed a lot of tackles that Kansas has not usually had an issue with. So I was impressed until the second half, where it just kind of fell apart because I think they were gassed, and I think it all comes back to the offensive performance from Jason Bean and the offense as a whole. They just couldn't get anything going besides that deep ball connection, and then I guess a little bit of a luck on the scoop and score from Haisha on that fumble. It felt like they're moving through mud a little bit on the offensive end, and there's nothing I think crazy that that the defense, like you can look at the Longhorns total offensive numbers, and they're really impressive. I mean, don't discount that. They were very good. But I look at the defense and I look at the offense, and I look at so much of the defensive numbers that the Longhorns offense put against the defense was because of the fact that the offense for KU couldn't stay on the field. I mean, you nearly get 39. They had 39 minutes of possession, Texas did, versus KU's 20. And you're looking at Texas having 86 plays to KU's 46. You just can't win football games that way when your defense is just constantly on the field. And, they did a good job at half of making a 13-7 game. But, like anyone could have told you, it was going to happen. They just fell apart in the second half. It's just a really, really tough position to be in for, I think, the defense. And, I think if Kansas wants to win more games than not the rest of the year, they really need the Jason Beam of last year, not the Jason Beam that showed up on Saturday.
What do you get a sense of, Shreyas Latta joining us, beat reporter for football and basketball for the KC Star? What do you think the difference is for Jason Beam, and bring us inside practice? Like, how many did Beam get any first team reps last week? Certainly he will this week. I mean, we know we did yesterday. Jalen Daniels didn't practice, but how is that in the past been split? And how much of a difference, knowing if he has to go, he'll get those reps now this week, do you think that's going to make for them?
No, Lance said he didn't get any first-team reps. He basically alluded to the fact that he barely had any reps for first-team, period. Like, even in the hotel walkthrough, because I think Lance didn't realize the severity of Jalen's back injury until they got to the stadium, really. And, his first-team reps were really fat warm-up, right, in Austin that Saturday. It's one of those things where I think he definitely would have been a little better if he was a little more prepared. I will say, I think it was just a futile thing to expect him to play well against Texas. They're just really, really good this year, and that's no discounting. Jason Beam is a quarterback who can play well against most teams in the country, but I think some of his weaknesses were exposed against Texas. His inability to kind of be decisive with his decisions, make the right decisions, scan, make the right read. I think those are things that Jalen does a lot better job of. And I think, that's where it really hurt KU's offense, because I think Bean just struggled to kind of, get rid of the ball to the right person and make the right read and throw accurate throws. I feel like KU's offensive line did a pretty good job of keeping him clear of hits. I don't remember him getting sacked, at all, maybe once. I think that's the biggest difference between him and Jalen is just the ability for Jalen to read the field, make the right throw, be decisive with it, and, make those second decisions that I think Jalen is so good at, whether it's, to keep it on the option or decide to give it off to a running back or whatever. That's super, super impressive. And, I think it's going to be interesting because he will be a lot more prepared, I think, this week against UCF if he does play and start. But I'm curious to see how he plays against them because, obviously they're not Texas, so it should be a little bit easier. But, it's still going to be a challenge.
I'm no doctor, Shreyas, and I'm not in that locker room. I don't know what their plans are moving forward, but it wouldn't surprise me if we see Jalen Daniels not play again until potentially October 28th when they take on OU. You've got UCF this weekend. You've got Oklahoma State on the road. They're in unmitigated disaster right now down in Stillwater. And then you have a bye week. So it wouldn't surprise me if we don't see Jalen until the end of October. But regardless if that's the case or not, what do you think overall long-term this team's ceiling is if they've got to ride with Jason Bean moving forward?
Well, I think I go from feeling like they're going to win 9 games or, to maybe go down to 7, or so. Yeah. I feel like there's a lot more 50-50 games now with Jason Beam at quarterback. I mean, there's no disrespect to Jason Beam. He's a good quarterback and he's better than most backups in the country. I'd say he's a top 10 backup. the top 7 backup in the country. I just think so much of what makes Kansas's offense brilliant alongside the running backs is Jalen Daniels' talent. And I've said that since, the first time we've talked. I believe in this team because I believe in Lance Leipold and Jalen Daniels, and I've been higher on them than I think anybody on local media for that reason. And, the defense has taken a tremendous step forward. The special teams is a lot better than last year. But I just feel like, there's a level of confidence that is there with Jalen at center that I don't have with Jason. And I think Jason is a very good quarterback, but you really need, I think Jalen for the games that like OU, if you want an upset against OU, you want Jalen back for Kansas State. You want Jalen back for Texas Tech. Even OSU could be a 50-50 game now, and UCF could very much be a 60-40 or 50-50 game. So all these games, I think that maybe Kansas would be decisive, like 70-30 or 60-40, now become 50-50. And football is so on the margin a lot of times, and especially college football, because these guys are kids. More often than not, they're not consistent week in, week out. And that's why you see upsets all the time. Now there's a lot more question marks. I really need to see, if you're a Kansas fan, I think obviously you want Jalen to get healthy as possible, but you also want the coaching staff at Kansas to make Jason Bean's life a little easier. And I feel like they didn't do, all they could on that end. I feel like there was a lot of just either deep shots or the option. And I feel like if there's a little more intermediate passing and a little more chance to kind of just play into his strengths, he'll be a lot more, I think, not just better, but a lot more comfortable. And he just looked a little skittish back there against Texas. And again, you're playing the number 3 team in the country in Austin in front of 100,000 fans. I don't blame anybody for feeling that way, especially when you find out 30 minutes before the game that, hey, I'm starting. That's a really tough position to be in. And I know for a fact that, Bean will be better than he has been as he was against Texas, but that bar isn't particularly very high, I think. So, I think it's interesting because I definitely think the ceiling gets lowered by a couple of wins.
So KU gets a chance to bounce back this weekend against UCF. We've seen UCF against Kansas State. They can be explosive. Their explosive plays hurt the Wildcats a little bit. Ultimately, the Wildcats handled their business. But Kansas has a chance now. I think we talk a lot about Jason Bean. It's the most obvious thing. And we alluded to this a little bit. But Shreya, how important is it for this defense to flex a little bit here? I mean, KU needs them. Leipold needs them to be closer to what they were before the Texas game than obviously what they were in the Texas game.
I think it's humongous. I mean, you just really need the defense to contain this UCF offense ranked, I think, 20th in the nation in points per game. They average almost 260 yards on the ground. They have 2 quarterbacks that are pretty good. Even if the starting quarterback comes back, the backup has done a pretty good job. I mean, in the games that, he's played, I mean, he has a 179 quarterback rating. Like, that's great, So I think they really need, to get manufacture some turnovers, make it a little bit easier for Jason Beam, put them in a good position, field wise, and the opportunity to give him maybe some shorter opportunity, length fields to kind of get touchdowns and stuff like that. I think they need to limit the run game against UCF because UCF's run game is so strong. I mean, 260 yards in the season per game is tremendous. Kansas is who has a tremendous run game, is just a tad under 200. So I think the defense really getting back to what they did against BYU, what they did against Illinois, I think is going to be humongous. And I think they need to make Jason Beam's job in life a little easier by getting some turnovers and wrecking havoc, honestly. And if they do that, I feel confident that they can come out of this game against UCF with a victory. Jason Beam or Jalen Daniels, doesn't matter.
Shreyas, you mentioned the running game for KU. Of course, I asked you this last week. We've talked about it multiple different times about the duo of Devin Neal and Daniel Highshaw. How much more important is it in your mind, assuming that, this team has got to go to Jason Bean to be able to figure out ways to get both of those guys, Neal and Highshaw, going in different ways against UCF this weekend?
I think it's humongous. You want to take as much pressure off Jason Bean as possible. I mean, you got to let him play his game. You want to use him in the option a little bit. You want to use his legs a little bit. You got to really lean on those 2 other guys and Dylan McDuffie. I mean, I think those guys can be so big for Kansas. And I think, like they've been one of the reasons why the offense this year has been one of the best in the country. Like obviously it's tapered off a little bit because, Jalen missed last game, but they're still averaging nearly 200 yards a game. And Devin Neal and Highshaw were pretty good against Texas. I mean, I think it was like 5.3 was the yards per carry for, how limited they were. I mean, they only had like 8 carries each just because of game script. But, I think there was there is a huge thing where they need to get the run game established. They need to be turning out 5, 6, 7 yards on a carry. They really need to just make it, I think, easier on Jason Beam's life so he can be comfortable and do what he does best, making the right passes at the right time, playing the option well, running with the ball when he needs to, and, showcasing that, hey, I can fill in for Jalen Daniels. I just need a little support, and if they play well, I think everything will fall into place.
All right, let's switch to basketball a little bit here, Shrey, as this Arterio Morris situation has been a hot mess. He's off the team now officially. Bill Self talked yesterday. Bring us inside what Self had to say, because KU publicly backed this guy, publicly, after a situation at Texas, and he comes to Kansas. And, we've got to let the legal system play out, but even to be in the situation here, there's definitely some egg on the face, I think. But what is the university and Bill Self saying about the situation here now publicly?
I think publicly, Self referred back to the statement a couple of times. And I asked him, when did they find out the allegation, the suspension? And then, he was like, I respect the question, but, I'm going to refer back to the statement. And, and I understand if you guys might not like the response, et cetera. When somebody asked him, what the background of bringing him was, he said that he was well vetted. So I think, he answered what he could in that press conference, and the situation, they keep on going, as you said, it's developing with the legal side of things. And as somebody who's been really just thrown into, has been the epicenter of everything from breaking the initial story to the second story or whatever, it's been crazy, to be quite frank. And, there's a lot of stuff that I think needs to unfold still. And I mean, obviously I'm still working on the reporting for other stuff, et cetera. But, obviously with the trial happening October 18th, we'll have to see what happens there and, go on from there. But I think getting him off the team and all that, was just Kansas doing what they had to do, especially with charges and him being brought in for arrest. But yeah, I think that's pretty much all I can say, at least at this moment right now.
So without him, what happens now with the roster? So he's gone. Now we know he's gone. What will KU do, you think, to fill that spot on the roster?
So Bill talked about maybe bringing somebody in by Christmas because, it's looking like they'll have 9 guys with Clements redshirting, and it looks like he's still going to redshirt. So maybe they're bringing another guy. It seems like Jamar McDowell is not going to redshirt, which seems like he's been playing really, really well at in practice and scrimmages. I think it was KJ Adams that mentioned he's the guy who's really stood out among some of the younger guys and stuff like that. So I think it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I think in a way, obviously just basketball optics wise, it really kind of clears up some of the guard rotation for Kansas. I know El Marco, Arterio, and DeJuan and Nick Timberlake would have been a disgusting guard rotation, but I think it clears up some minutes for El Marco, who's a guy who's a projected top 15 draft pick next year in the NBA draft. It might clear up some opportunity minutes for him to be really a super 6-man, where he plays starter minutes. And they start with Timberlake just because they need the shooting, and he can be the first point guard off the bench. And it'll be interesting to see if they decide to wait till Christmas to pick up somebody, or maybe Zach Clemens changes his mind down the line and he decides to redshirt or not redshirt, and but I think in a way it in itself it'll give opportunities for guys like Nick Timberlake and El Marco Jackson more time to shine. Maybe Jamari McDowell becomes a guy who plays more minutes, and Johnny Furphy. I completely forgot about him, but he's I've heard great things about him throughout, and it seems like he's well adjusted from what his teammates have said yesterday and before. So I think he's going to play a big role, and an even bigger role with Arturo gone now.
All right. Shreyas, good stuff, man. Anything you've got coming up this week on the Star that people need to check out?
So I'll be doing my regular film breakdown with former KU quarterback Carter Stanley. We're going to be just going through the good and bad of Jason Bean against Texas. So we'll have that probably come out tomorrow morning. And then typical football coverage, UCF, getting prepared for that, help on the mailbag, etc. I will not be at the game. One of my best friends is getting married, but I'll be at late night, which will be fun. And I guess check out all the stuff at theKansasCityStar.com.
All right, Shreyas Lotta, you can find all that work too on X or Twitter at SHRE98. Of course, all the work at KC Star. If you missed anything from the beginning of this interview, you can go back and listen at KFHradio.com for free on the Odyssey app. Shreyas, we appreciate it. I know it's been a busy time. I would say things will settle in, but they won't. It's always busy this time of year. Good luck with the coverage, man.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, guys.
There goes Shreyas Lotta. Again, lot we covered there between the Jalen Daniels injury, Jason Bean moving forward, the Arterio Morris situation, what happens with the roster. If you missed any of it, check it out. All right, when we come back, Dan Israel, executive producer of the Chiefs Radio Network. He's been bouncing around, traveling. Confirmation that he's ready to roll. We'll do that next on Sports Daily. All right, Jad's tracking down Dan for us here. Dan's been traveling around this morning. We'll get him in just a second, executive producer of the Chiefs Radio Network. We're going to go through several things with Dan. The Jets game, the latest on Taylor Swift, probably not, but maybe. We'll look ahead a little bit. Vikings game is interesting. I'm curious on Dan's take on back-to-back road games like this and what that takes. And then the wide receiver conversation we were having earlier, people wondering if the Chiefs should trade. I don't know if that makes sense to me. We'll see if it makes sense to Dan. And I do want to know, like, what are they seeing in the film study as far as, how these guys are playing and adjusting to Mahomes' style? Because we know that's a big part of it, right? And, talent to talent, this could be an interesting room. But, we'll get into all of that. Here he is, Dan Israel.
Caught! Touchdown! Kansas City!
Hey, Chiefs Kingdom, we have you covered. Joining Sports Daily Live, executive producer of the Chiefs Radio Network, Dan Israel.
All right, Dan, welcome back in for another weekly visit. Glad you've been able to get through your crazy day here and join us here on Sports Daily. Let's start looking back. The Jets game, maybe a little closer than people thought. I think we could see something coming, but I don't know if anybody saw Zach Wilson playing well coming. What did you see from him? I mean, it looked like a different player out there. Nope, we lost Dan there. Just a second. We'll try and reconnect there with Dan Israel. Real quick, Tommy, on Zach Wilson. How do you think he bounces back? You saw the clip of him. Say, I cost us the game or something to that degree. I think one thing that's never wavered for him is his confidence. There's got to be some concern now about his confidence moving forward.
Well, I don't think so. I mean, I think that, he had the best game that he's had as a professional on Sunday night. And yeah, he fumbled the snap that ultimately cost them the game. But at the end of the day, he led them almost to victory. And that's better than what Zach Wilson has basically ever done in his career.
Dan Israel is here with us now. Dan, what did you see from Wilson from your study going into the game versus what you saw during the game? How different a quarterback was he on Sunday?
I think they did a complete body and mind transplant with him because he was shockingly good. Well, let me put it this way. He played to a level that I think he deserves a chance to improve. We've not seen that in the last 3 years, really. I don't know whether they reduced the demand on him or what, but and they were trying to get the ball out of his hand quicker, which I thought was very successful. But it played much, much better than anything that I had seen previous to that. And I've watched quite a bit of film on him, enough to see that he was consistently not playing well. And so it was interesting. I stayed in New York. I'm still in New York, actually. I had some business with league headquarters, and we rode out of the stadium as opposed to being on the team charter. I rode out with fans, and New York Jets fans were shocked. They were amazed that he played as well as he did. But I think for Jets fans, you have to be encouraged because he just played much better than expected, I thought.
Do you think, Dan, that is a testament to just the pure talent that Zach Wilson has? Or was there something that the Chiefs defense was showing that Zach Wilson in the offense for the Jets, they were able to take advantage of?
Well, I think it probably a little of both, but I think, he had an opportunity here to really settle down. One of the things that I had noticed about his play previous to Sunday night's game was he was taking 2+ seconds on average to get rid of the football, and sometimes as much as 2.73 seconds to get rid of the football. That is entirely too long for an NFL quarterback. Defenses are just too fast these days. You can't do that. And I thought Sunday he was right around 2 seconds or a little under. So I think there was a conscious effort on his part or on Nathaniel Hackett's as the Jets offensive coordinator to literally reduce what they were asking him to look at, to say, look at this, and if it's not there, then throw it here. And that allowed him to launch the ball much more quickly than he had been doing. But I also think he made really good decisions when he had the opportunity to make a decision. And that's something I hadn't seen prior to that. So both were a little bit shocking to me. I think there was an effort to say, okay, let's take some load off of him. But I think he just physically played better Sunday night than he's been playing. I can't answer why. I don't think Jets fans can answer why, but they're just happy about it.
Well, let's talk about the Chiefs. And the wide receivers have come up in conversation. There are people wondering if the Chiefs should go trade for somebody. Here's the problem I have is I don't watch the all 22s. I don't study the film, but we know you do. So when you're watching this and you're watching these receivers, to me, when I just watch a game as, you know, a normal person watches a game, it doesn't look like a lot of the time Mahomes is getting to the younger guys in his progressions. And my guess is they're not used to and good enough yet at adjusting to his second reaction plays. So I guess my question is there progress being made with this group when they're not actually catching the ball to adjusting to this offense? Or do you think going outside and maybe bringing somebody in wouldn't be a bad idea?
Well, I think that there were moments, there were flashes of what could be from Sunday's game. Rashee Rice, I thought, had a couple of moments where you can see how athletic this kid is. And if he can just hang off, in my opinion, he has the potential to be somebody, you know, a productive member of the wide receiver room. There were some Justin Watson in the past few games. I think there's definitely a core group there that they can utilize. I don't know where MBS disappeared to. I felt like, you know, that was strange to me. And can you go out and get somebody and bring somebody in? Yeah. I mean, I think if you can go out and get a quality person and bring them in, that's always going to help. I also think there's just what you said, where the receivers, some of these young receivers don't quite have the synergy with Mahomes that a guy like Travis Kelce does. Where the two are thinking the same thing, even though it's not drawn up that way. And so I think that will improve as the reps improve. So as these guys play together and they do more together, that will also be a factor. And then lastly, the Jets secondary is just that good. These guys are fast. Sauce Gardner and Reed, they're the real deals, man. And I just feel like, you know, I said all pregame long, I kept asking the question of everybody that I could ask, should the Chiefs just run the football? Should this just be we rushed for 153 yards the prior week. We had all three running backs score a touchdown. Let's just do that, right? You know, we know these guys take the ball away. And so I felt like that should have been our game plan from the get-go. And everybody else kept telling me, no, the Chiefs can't abandon their identity. It's like, well, you know, we do that every week. That's how you combat an opponent, right? You change yourself. You're a chameleon, and you've got to change. You've got to adapt. And so I felt like the Chiefs' resistance to that at first, well, in the first quarter, I thought they did a good job of it. But then in the second and third quarters, I felt like Mahomes just, you know, they were almost trying to force the passing game to get going. And I think if we'd just been more patient and rushed the football, it's awfully easy for me to say, you know, from the comfort of my hotel room, right, 3 days later, looking back on everything. But I feel like this was a game where the wide receiver room wasn't going to be terribly effective. So from my standpoint, I wouldn't read too much into that yet. But I think if in the next coming maybe 2 or 3 weeks, we don't see somebody start to emerge, I don't think the Chiefs are going to have a choice. I think they're going to have to go out and find somebody that can come in and, you know, set this room on fire, so to speak.
Dan, do you think that the identity offensively for this team, do you think that we're just kind of at a point now where we ought to get used to the fact that they might be a more balanced team than what we're used to? Like they're going to run the ball more than what we're used to with the way that the offenses ran with Patrick Mahomes over the last few years, or, you know, that maybe just the wide receivers are not going to blossom in the way that we thought that they might. And then kind of following up with that, if that's the identity of this offense moving forward, is that enough in your mind for them to win a championship?
That's an excellent question. You know, I think I'm an old school guy, and I've been around 35 years, and this, there's an element in me that says, take the complementary football. You can win a championship. Championships have been won with that and defense for years. And if we're a very balanced team where we, half the snaps are running, half the snaps are passing, and the rest is pure solid top 5 defense, who cares, right? As long as we can stay in games. But I feel like for fans, we've become accustomed, and not just fans, I think internally in the organization too, we've accustomed to saying, oh, we can score 30, 35, 40 points. And so why not? Well, there was a day and a time when 20 points would win you a football game. And so a little bit of both. Again, to answer your question, I feel like at times I love the balanced approach because you're going to play teams whose strength don't line up with yours. And you've got to apply, you don't want to take your weakness into their strength. And so the more balanced you are, the less a factor that is. So for me, I like the idea of balanced football. I think the Chiefs like the idea of balanced football. But again, when the bullets start flying and you're making calls 3 and 4 plays ahead of when they're actually occurring, much harder to do in reality than probably it is to talk about right now. But I love the idea of the Chiefs being a balanced defense, and I mean a balanced team, a complementary team. I would even throw special teams into that, where if we could get some, a big special teams play here and there to kind of steal a possession or cut the field in half. I think all of those things the Chiefs can benefit from, all teams benefit from. But the more you can do them on demand, I think the better football team you are.
It's interesting, Dan, as we look at him, and Butker's seems to be back, which I agree is a big advantage. What do we think? Because the Chiefs probably didn't win that by as much as people thought they would. You're seeing the Vikings struggle. But it's a back-to-back road game, and just how difficult is that in this league to go back-to-back on the road?
Yeah, I think it's very difficult. The stress and pressure that it puts on me as a broadcaster is difficult. And for players, it's the whole team, just picking everything up and moving back and forth is very difficult. And the Jets game in particular is a long travel. Now, Minnesota won't be that long, but the Vikings are definitely in. I think the other issue with this game is it's an NFC team. We don't fully know how you stack up against the NFC. The league plays, you essentially play one NFC team that finished in your ranking as an AFC team, and the rest is just an NFC division team that you play. So it's really difficult to know when you go up there, how good are these guys? Are they struggling to a point where, we can take advantage of that, or is it they're struggling against other teams? Now, in my opinion, from what I've seen out of the Vikings, they just seem to be struggling. They're a very strange team. They have all this potential, and yet they never seem to quite put it together at the right timing, and they lose games in the fourth quarter. That's what the Chiefs are good at, winning the games in the fourth quarter. So it would appear that we should be able to go up there and take care of business against the Vikings. But as you said, back-to-back road games, it makes it difficult. And if you read into all this Taylor Swift conspiracy, who knows? I guess we need a copy of the NFL script to really know what's going to happen.
Dan, after watching what Isaiah Pacheco did on Sunday night, and of course it was a homecoming game for him and all of that, do you think that he is built in a way, and not just physically, but just in the way that, he runs the football and how driven he is and all of that, that he can be a bell cow running back? I know that one of the concerns with him has been just how physical he runs the football, maybe makes him more, susceptible to injury and, not being able to hold up for an entire season. But do you think that if Andy Reid and Matt Nagy lean on him to be a bell cow running back, that is a viable option for them offensively?
I love watching this kid run, and he's just, and I've seen a lot of good running backs. Priest Holmes, part of my career covered Christian Okoye, Larry Johnson's, Marcus Allen. I think he's the funnest running back I've ever seen in a Chiefs uniform. I think he's the second greatest runner I've ever seen on the football field, or been close to. I would put Barry Sanders above that, but I don't think running backs can survive a long time, period. I don't care who you are. If this league can break a guy like Andrew Luck, 6'6", 260 pounds or whatever he was as a quarterback, they can break a running back no matter how he's built. And even though I think Pacheco, I think the speed at which he runs, the intensity, that's both improve his chances against injury, his weight and size improve his chances against injury. But running backs historically throughout the last 60 years, or certainly the Super Bowl era in the National Football League, are like tires on a car. The more you drive the car, the more tread you wear off the tire. And I feel like I don't feel like he could avoid that forever. I do think he's got an advantage against it, but if you run him enough, he's going to get hurt. I mean, even Nick Bolton right now, is hurt. And Nick Bolton is a guy I thought who's built very similar to Pacheco, but I feel like these ankles and there's just, the league is very violent still, despite their efforts to try to pull these plays, to kind of water these plays down and to water the collisions down. Running back is just always going to be one of those positions it's hard to be durable at. I'd like to think he's going to be above average durability, but he's not invincible.
All right, Dan, we've got you guys coming up this weekend. What's special on the broadcast for this Viking games we can look forward to?
We're going to have a very special guest this weekend. Paul Allen is going to join us. He's the Vikings play-by-play guy. He's also, he's very well known throughout the league for having these iconic calls, much like Mitch Holthus. And so it's going to be fun. We're going to get a chance to talk to him. And it's interesting, I've been to a lot of stadiums in my career. The Viking Stadium is one stadium I've not been to. It's been, last time we played there, we were playing at the University of Minnesota. So we're going to we're going to try to do a little mini tour of the stadium as well, but should be a good broadcast, should be a good game. These are two playoff contending teams. So I would expect that the Chiefs better bring their A game. It's going to be exciting one way or the other.
All right, Dan Israel, you can hear him this weekend over on KNSS, the home of the Kansas City Chiefs, on our Odyssey family. Dan, safe travels. Enjoy your time, and we'll look forward and enjoy the broadcast this weekend.
Thank you, gentlemen. Go Chiefs.
Dan Israel, executive producer of the Chiefs Radio Network, joining us for a weekly visit. Always appreciate that. Jad, let's give away that last pair of Dropkick Murphy tickets here on the way out. They're coming tomorrow. If you're a Dropkick Murphy fan, this is your chance. Our last pair. Wave tomorrow, 7 o'clock with Jesse Ahern and the Interrupters. Get your tickets on us. First caller, IHOP Hotline, which is brought to you by IHOP, where guests can enjoy the new pumpkin spice pancake combo. 869-1240. Good luck. We'll be right back with more Sports Daily right after this.
All right, welcome back, everybody. It's Sports Daily here on KFH. Tommy Castor, Jacob Albracht, and Jad Chambers producing the show. Congratulations, Brandon. The final pair of Dropkick Murphy tickets goes to Brandon. That show tomorrow night at the Wave, the outdoor venue there in downtown. It's going to be a great show. I mean, Dropkick Murphys, we talked about it a few days ago. Always fun, always a great time, to be able to enjoy that kind of band. And I know that it's been kind of a blast from the past, Jacob. I don't know about you, but hearing when we've been giving those tickets away for Dropkick Murphys, hearing the intros of those songs, like takes me back. I remember like listening to all of them back in the day.
Oh yeah. I got to see him live at the Amarillo Civic Center way back when. And it was intense to see the mosh pit. I told you, I was like, we had a ska phase in the band that I played in like middle and high school. And we had gone to like a Christian ska show, which was very friendly, right? Like everybody's moshing out. But if somebody fell down or whatever, they would help them up and pick them up and take care of them. It's not the case at the Dropkick Murphy show, where it's a little more intense. And I was like, whoa, as a middle schooler, I had to step back a little bit and get out of there. But it was fun. Dropkick Murphys are cool. It is a blast from the past. I agree. Tommy, you sent me this. We'll have to get into this tomorrow. The Royals are returning all their coaches. Boy, I don't know how to feel about that, honestly. They didn't win a ton of games, but you did start to see progress with certain players, which I do think is meaningful and I do think is important. So I'm going to have to digest this probably and get into it tomorrow because I don't really know how I feel about it.
Yeah, the development of these young players, like that's paramount more than anything else. And so if JJ Piccolo feels like Matt Quatrero and the coaching staff are the guys to help develop these players, then okay, I get that. Like it makes sense. Even though they lost 100 games, you did see some flashes. Of course, Bobby Witt Jr. had a really special season. Cole Reagans came along, towards the end and was a breath of fresh air. So again, if they feel like these are the guys to develop the players, I'm okay with that. The results on the field notwithstanding, it wasn't acceptable. But again, you're going to need to start seeing that progress.
Yeah, it's tough, man. I don't know. Let's get into it tomorrow. I really I got to think about this one and because it had sort of slipped my mind, honestly. And we talked about it from the very beginning of the season. And I'm just like, oh, you sent me that. And I'm like, I kind of guess I just assumed that was going to happen. We'll get into it tomorrow. Major League Baseball playoffs get underway today, by the way. We'll come back. We'll tell you what's on tap here on the network today. Sports Daily next.
Wichita's most listened to sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
All right, welcome back, everybody, and welcome out as we're on the way out. Congratulations to all our winners today. Brandon, Jessica, Chris, all winners of prizes here on Sports Daily. So happy to be able to do that. Jim Rome follows us. Bob and Jeff from 2 to 4. Zach Gelb for a couple hours before the Chiefs Kingdom show tonight, 6 o'clock here on KFH. Good luck to my Texas Rangers today in the Major League Baseball playoffs. Again, I fully expect everybody to go ahead and root for them today, tomorrow, and Thursday if necessary. So no pressure, but it's, we need the help.
Hope it goes well for you. It's going to be a fun day of baseball starting at 2 o'clock today.
And you get ready for a pity party tomorrow if it doesn't go well. For Tommy Castor and Jad Chambers, I'm Jacob Albracht. We'll see you then.